Thanks so much for joining us and for being right on time. We're so excited to have you today for our WIF Fellowship Ask Me Anything. We will hopefully have time for everyone's questions about our upcoming program opening, and we're so excited to talk to you about new developments, what we've learned over the last year. We're really excited about the continuation of this program and to have so many new types of community members in the WIF family. So thank you all so much for being here. As we're getting started, feel free to put your name, pronouns, and your field or discipline in the chat. We'd love to see who's here. So if you are, as an example, Maikiko, I use she, her, hers pronouns. I'm the Senior Director of Programs at WIF, but in my other lives, I've also been a writer and performer. So feel free to describe who you are and what you do in the chat. And we'll get started. We'll give people just a couple more minutes to trickle in. So excited to see so many of you. And as like a technical note, if you have questions for us about the fellowship program, feel free to drop those into the Q&A bucket, which is, as you'll see on the bottom of your screen, if you hover over the bottom, there's a little Q&A box. So we won't be using the chat for questions, we'll be using the Q&A function. And if you do end up typing a question in the chat, then you will see someone redirect you to the Q&A box. And those will be the questions that we hopefully get to today. All right, so we are at 2 minutes past. We pride ourselves on being punctual and thank all of you who are here already on being punctual. So why don't we get right into it? I'm sure many people will join. Oh, Emily, it says the chat is disabled. We'll see if we can fix that. If not, we apologize. It's sometimes a function that has to be opened up beforehand. But feel free to then let us know who you are in the Q&A box. That's also fine. So just to tell everyone again, hi, my name is Maikiko. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I am the Senior Director of Programs at WIF, also known as Women in Film. But for anyone who may not have heard about our soft rebrand, WIF is now our preferred titling as we are acknowledging many changes both in our world and in our community, WIF being more representative of a broader community. We certainly have never served only people working in the film industry. We serve people who work in television and all kinds of digital entertainment, but also women has many connotations these days that we think need to be expanded. And we are a community that's representative of all genders and really want to make sure people know that they are eligible and welcome to apply to all of our programs, come to our events. And so if you are referring to our organization out in the public, feel free to call us WIF. Though if people are confused, it's okay to still call us Women in Film as well. So let's jump in. I'll talk briefly about the fellowship, but really today's conversation is for your questions, to ask us anything that we didn't answer in the FAQs. Forgive us if we do think you're asking a question that is answered in the FAQs. We may redirect you to the website as we try to be pretty comprehensive there, but we understand people may not have had time to read. The WIF Fellowship Program launched last year really as an effort to bring together all of the lessons learned through WIF's programs over at least the last 9 years that I've been working at the organization, and understanding its most beneficial in our works for us to really get to know our participants and those who engage with our programs. And so the fellowship is a 12-month program for people across disciplines of all types in the industry, from creatives to people behind the desk, and really it gives us a chance to get to know you over the course of a year, understand your career directions and what you're hoping to achieve, and how we can leverage our networks and resources to get you there. So through a combination of both mentoring as well as networking opportunities and events, speaker series, and then strategic career support, which Melissa will talk about, we really have been so thrilled with the results of the last year of really getting to know our fellows and providing you tailor-made, deep, intentional support throughout the year to get you through to the next steps of your career. And obviously, in a strike year, it's been a really interesting time over the past 5 months. We know people have been really challenged challenged by work stoppage, and we're so excited for our members who are writers and the incredible agreement that they've achieved, and continue to be in solidarity with our actor members. We as an organization also really aim to change our industry so it can be a place that everyone can work sustainably, safely, securely. And that's another big part of our fellowship, is creating the community and camaraderie that's needed to create the rising tide that lifts all boats and makes sure that workplaces in entertainment are safe and sustainable for everyone across communities, to work reasonably. And that's really a big core part of our mission. With that, I'll just share a couple of updates about the program. This year, we only have one application window for the fellowships. Last year, if you applied, you may remember there were 2 separate windows. This year, everyone applies at the same time. That includes 4 our fellowships, as well as our episodic lab, which Melissa will also talk about. Another big change is that we will not be bringing back the feature residency co-hosted with the Blacklist this year. So if you are a screenwriter or a feature writer looking for support, please apply to our writer fellowship, as well as stay tuned for upcoming screenwriting opportunities that will be forthcoming hopefully in first quarter of next year, as well as the Blacklist has expanded their lab opportunities for feature writers. So we will certainly provide links to their website, and you can see what their programs look like in 2024. And with that, I will pass it over to my colleague Amelie to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amelie. My pronouns are she, her. I am WIF's program coordinator, and I will be answering any questions that come through the programs info inbox. So if you have any questions at all, I'm here to help you. And I will pass it on to my colleague, Melissa.
Thanks, Amelie. Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa. I'm the Senior Manager of Career Programs at WIF. I use she, her pronouns. Been at the organization for about 7 years, the whole time in the programs department. So I am really excited about the fellowships and how all the programs have come together to sort of form that fellowship. And that is my main focus. So if you are applying, you will probably speak to Amelie sometimes, myself sometimes. And if you're placed into the program, you will be working with us both quite often and hearing from us a lot. So I thought I would start today with some dates and deadlines, just so everyone hears them. So for our episodic lab, the applications are currently open. Those applications do close much earlier than our fellowship. So if you are a writer, pay close attention. Those applications close on November 13th. So they're open for a little less than about a month and a half. We will be doing an AMA specifically on the episodic lab with our colleagues at the Blacklist on October 20th. The RSVP link will be live hopefully by the end of the day, definitely by the end of the week for that RSVP or for that AMA. So make sure you're checking our website, looking at our newsletter. And if you are interested in that, make sure to sign up for that AMA. Also note that if you are a writer interested in our fellowship and you have an episodic script, we really highly recommend you look at both applications. There is an option to check on the episodic lab application that you are interested in the writer fellowships. So then you don't have to do 2 different applications. So if you have an episodic script, you're interested in the episodic lab, go through that application. It will still allow you to be considered for the writer fellowship. If you are just focused on the writer fellowship, you don't have an episodic script right now, you're a screenwriter who, just really wants to focus on that side of your career, then you can apply directly to the fellowship and you have a little bit more time. You have until January. So dates for the episodic lab, those applicants will be notified the week of February 12th. So applicants there will find out pretty quickly. And the lab begins on March 5th, and it runs Tuesday and Thursday nights throughout the entire month of March. So that's our episodic lab. Everyone who is accepted into that episodic lab also becomes WIF Writer Fellows. So if you apply through that program, you get into that program, you will still become a WIF Fellow with that year of support. So that's exciting for us. The fellowship applications are open as well. Those close on January 8th. So again, a lot more time. What we will say is time goes really, really fast. Our deadlines for our program applications are 11:59 p.m. Pacific time, the date of the application closing, and we don't really have control over that. So once the system closes applications, they are closed. We also don't have technical support after 6 p.m. We are a small, but mighty team. So after 6 p.m. when people go home, we really don't have any support for those last couple of hours on the day that applications close. So all to say, we know January 8th seems really far away. Please look at the application, start getting prepared, and try and get those in as soon as you can, just so that you don't have any tech issues, or at least maybe the week before, so that we can help you out. We definitely encourage you to read all of the application materials. We've put PDFs up on the website. We might, if we add anything to the application, we might, upload the PDFs again. So keep checking back if you haven't applied yet, just to make sure that you're looking at the most up-to-date PDF. But pretty much everything, the core of the application is there. So you'll see everything that's being requested. Please read all the fine print. And a really important note for that is we ask for previous links, we ask for scripts. The episodic lab is project focused, whereas the fellowship is more focused on individuals, but we still would like to read the scripts, see your previous work, see links to projects that you've done. We will only read or review the amount that we've told you. So if we say that we need a 15-minute clip, that means we will only read the first 15 or see the first 15. So if you're giving us an entire feature film, you're a director, you're a producer, you're a writer, and you want to show us, or even a designer who wants to show us your previous work, and you give us an entire hour-and-a-half film, 2-hour film, we will only watch the first 15 minutes. So please just think about that, edit things, just give us the piece that you really want us to look at. But all of that goes back to just really reading the application, reading the fine print, and giving yourself time to sort of tailor your information to make sure that we are looking at the aspects of the application that you would like us to review. So going into sort of the details of the fellowship before we get into Q&A, there's, I think a framework that will help people, sort of understand the information that's on the website. But I think the number one question that we get about the fellowships is there a place for me in this fellowship, or is this fellowship right for me, or do you have support for my type of career? And we will say we are trying our best to figure out language that covers everyone. Artisan and crew is the closest we've gotten to like the designers, the department heads, the crew members. But really what we want you to know is that our fellowship support women, non-binary, and trans people from all areas of the entertainment industry. The one caveat to that is if you are an actor who is focused solely on acting, we support you. We want to, be there for you, but we really don't have a program that supports acting as a whole. If you are an actor multi-hyphenate, an actor producer, actor writer, actor anything, actor editor, please apply. If you get into the program, you might be put in your multi-hyphenate cohort, but we can certainly talk about your overall career in other areas of the fellowship. But that is the one caveat. If you are not an actor who is solely focused on acting, then there is a place in this fellowship potentially for you. We will say we did accept some crew members this year where there's only one person in the cohort, and we're really excited to flesh that out. So if you feel that you are a very, very underrepresented position in the industry and you just don't think there's a way for us to support you, please talk to us. We would like to find out how to support you and build that in. As far as the framework of the program, there's sort of 4 buckets that we guarantee to every fellow that comes into the fellowship. The first of that is mentoring. The mentoring aspect of the fellowship is largely lifted from the mentoring program that we had for many, many years at WIF. It was a flagship program, but the WIF staff could not really wrap our arms around the amount of mentees we had, and also the relationship with the mentees and the mentors were a little closer than the staff was. So this brings everybody into the full year of support with the WIF staff, but there is still guaranteed 6 sessions with a mentor for every fellow. Most of that is in a group setting, so the cohorts of up to 8 fellows will meet together with a mentoring team 6 times over the course of the year. And the hope there is that the fellows are building relationships with each other, and also long-standing relationships with those mentors who are advanced in their career trajectory and typically are complementary, come from maybe the craft side and the business side. If the fellowship cohort is a creative cohort. The next bucket would be demystification and skill building. Those are our workshops, our guest speaker sessions. If there are specific skill building or demystification that's helpful for a fellow, we like to try and find somebody to come talk to that fellow specifically, but it is really about how do we educate all of our fellows to be prepared for the next opportunity, so that there isn't as much faking it till you make it, that you can, step in with confidence. So we really like to hear from the fellows and program around, but those are, guest speaking sessions where, people come in and talk about, nuanced areas, or specific technical skill building sessions, whether that is learning movie magic or anything like that. That is the type of programming that we build into there. The next aspect is one that I'm really excited about. It's career strategy. We do offer every fellow at least 3 opportunities to sit down with somebody on the WIF team to talk specifically about that individual's career. This is where multi-hyphenateness really does come into the program, and we can support it. But also figure out who in our community we can introduce that fellow to, how we can help support, and also, general strategy and brainstorming of how to harness, the community and the contacts that that fellow has. So it's a general career strategy together that really focuses on the individual. And then the 4th part of it is networking and community building. Also really exciting aspect. We do have 87 fellows in the 2023 fellowship from all different walks, and networking them together is really exciting for us because we want every fellow to come out of this program feeling like they've built a community around themselves, can work with people in the future, maybe are looking for, partners in the future and have found that in our fellowship, but also have a community around them of people a couple steps ahead who can, continue supporting them throughout their career journey. I think that we know that this is a lot of information. There's a lot of information on the website. We think that that sort of gives a good framework that hopefully answers a lot of questions. But I think at this point, we can open it up for general Q&A for anything that needs a little more explanation or people would like to discuss.
So Melissa, I'll start with there are a few questions around the distinction between the Episodic Lab and the Writers Fellowship. It's a great question, and one that's a little confusing because of how we've changed the process and the program offering this year. So they are 2 distinct programs. However, as Melissa mentioned, if you are accepted into the Episodic Lab, co-hosted with the Blacklist, you would automatically become a WIF Writer Fellow. We will also have a separate fellowship for writers. So the program that Melissa just described, a circle specifically for writers. In terms of the application process, it's the one, again, that's a little bit tricky, but I'll try to do my best. You can apply to the Episodic Lab and check off that you would also like to be considered for the fellowship. That is the only application where you get kind of 2 in 1, if that makes sense. You can apply both for the Episodic Lab and check off that you'd like to be considered for the Writer Fellowship as well. You can also apply just for the fellowship, in which case you would ideally upload a different kind of script, but you can also apply with a TV pilot and say, I'm just applying for the Writer Fellowship. You can also apply just for the Episodic Lab and say, I'm not interested in the Writer Fellowship. I only want to apply for the lab. So you'll see all of that kind of explained in writing in the application. But again, if there's any questions or confusion, you can always email us at programs@wif.org as you're in process. One thing I will note, if someone asked this, is a feature script required to apply for the Writing Fellowship? Not at all. You can apply with a TV pilot, or you can apply with a feature script. To apply for the Episodic Lab, you only need an original TV pilot, and then as well as the other application materials. But again, the main thing, the requirement for all is some kind of script. The Episodic Lab requires a TV pilot. The Writing Fellowship, you can use a pilot or a feature screenplay, and you can apply for them together, separately, or each individually. And again, I know hearing that in verbally is a little bit confusing. It's much more clear on the website. But that is the one case where if you're applying for other fellowships in multiples, like I want to apply for the Business Fellowship and the Producer Fellowship, you would have to apply for those separately and pay different fees if you are applying a la carte, meaning not as a member. And then if you want to apply with multiple scripts for the Episodic Lab, you would also have to pay a fee per pilot. So again, the only twofer is if you're applying for the Episodic Lab and would like to be considered for the fellowship. Outside of that, every application would require its own application fee.
I think we also have some questions, particularly I'm guessing it's the producers that are asking for some clarification around the different types of producers and also the executive versus producer fellowship options. So first, for development executives, the Business Fellowship and the Executive Fellowship cohort within that fellowship are specifically for those who are on the track to either are development executives right now or physical production executives, or are on the track to be that. So could be managers, could be coordinators that are on desks right now. That's who that fellowship is for. It is not a fellowship for producers to come in to learn how to develop their projects or how to sell their projects to these types of people. If you are a producer who is interested in making a transition into the executive space, you are interested in being a development executive, production executive at a studio, network, streamer, production company, that is something you could potentially apply as both a producer and as an executive, because we do consider people making transitions between positions, but it would be two, like Mikiko just said, two different applications. So that is, I know it's tricky because there are many producers who are trying to figure out if they want to stick with that independent track, which is a tough track, or move into the executive space. Happy to talk to people about that. Also, we would consider being really clear in your goals in your statement letter, no matter how you apply, whether you apply as a producer, as an executive, or to both. Be really clear in your statement letter of what your future goals are. Or if your goals are just, I'm an independent producer, I'm really curious about this space, that is something that can also be brought into the producer fellowship as a demystification. As far as the different types of producers go, if you are a producer in either doc or the fiction space who shepherds a project sort of top to bottom, finds a script, develops the script with a writer, or potentially comes onto a project once the script is written, but you're finding funding and financing, you are shepherding production, you are shepherding post, you are responsible for finding distribution, or on the team who is finding distribution, sort of that entire process, you would be considered an independent or creative producer in our fellowships. And that again goes for doc or fiction. If you are somebody who is focused, like you're a line producer, possibly a production manager who's looking to move up, and is focused on that scheduling, the budgeting, hiring of crew, managing production specifically, we would consider you a physical producer. So line producers are really that track. And then any other kind of producer, post producers, VFX producers, also producers that we would want to consider in this fellowship. So for that, with our application, if you look at the PDFs, you're selecting producers. But for the most part, you have an option to write in your specifications in a box. So we would just say, do your best. This is another reason why it's really great to download that PDF and look at it so you can ask very specific questions of us, because some of these questions we can't really answer without knowing who you are and knowing what your trajectory and goals are. So hopefully that answers, but if any producers have additional questions, please ask them.
And to that point, again, you can apply for multiple fellowships if you fit multiple categories. That's totally okay. We won't, prioritize one or the other unless you want us to. But we are going to assume that if you are applying to multiple fellowships, that you really want to do both things, right? I want to be a writer and a director. And believe you me, we have many writer directors in both our director fellowship and our writer fellowship. It's highly unlikely that you will be placed into fellowships. So that to clarify, you can apply for multiple fellowships, unlikely that you would be accepted into more than one. That said, we reviewed your application, know you're a multi-hyphenate, know you have multiple interests, so we'll do our best to connect you to resources in all of your career trajectory, and make sure that you get the multiple parts of your career path answered. So it doesn't work against you to apply for multiples. It also doesn't work against you to apply for one, right? So if you are just I do multiple things, but I think I'm pretty focused on the director track, then just apply for that. But if you really want to, throw your hat in the ring for multiple application pools, that's totally fine.
We also have some questions about stages of people's careers that we're looking for. I would say we are looking, as long as you have stepped into the professional path of the entertainment industry, even if that is like if you are a crew, if you've been PAing on higher level things and you know exactly what department you want to go into, we would consider that application. For writer, directors, producers, we're probably looking for people who have at least done a short, written a short, produced a short, directed a short. We do require previous tape. For most people, I see that there is a producer question of whether or not the script that is submitted has to have been made. Absolutely not. I think we're actually more interested in the previous links being where you show us things that have actually gotten up on its feet. And note, for producers, we do ask for things like budget for that previous work, schedule for that previous work, so that we can really get a picture based on the final piece of tape. But for the script that you're submitting, I think we would actually prefer something that's in development, so that there is a project that we can sort of build things around if you're accepted into the fellowship. We also ask for your slate. For producers, I would say, and this is something as you're looking through the application PDF, it will sort of direct what stage we're probably most interested in for a specific career trajectory, particularly based on the historic support that we've had for that career, which is mostly producers, directors, writers. You can see if we require something, then that means it's probably a requirement of who we are looking at for the program. So to answer the question, I think a little more clearly, for producers, writers, directors, you will see a required area for previous links and for uploads, including slates. If you don't have that, there is a chance that that particular fellowship is possibly more competitive, and you know, it would be more difficult for you to be placed in the program. But you can always come to us and send us an email and say, hey, here's where I'm at and I don't quite have this. Would it still be okay for me to apply, or would you still consider me? And we can definitely make you know, judgment calls based on that. We are looking we would like more people to apply so we can consider you than, you know, turn people away. So just make sure to check the PDF. If there are questions about requirements, please, you know, check with us. If there is not a requirement, then that probably means that fellowship, we are open to more entry-level people or emerging people, particularly as we build out support for certain areas.
I did see at least one question about the statement letter or letter of interest, and happy to talk about that. Really encourage folks to think deeply about what you want us to know about you. I will start with maybe some of the more unrecommended steps to take or to not take when you're submitting. Again, this is for the most part, our one chance to really get to know you. So I've seen people submit letters that were like, you know, 2 or 3 sentences long. Don't do that. We really want to know who you are, know about your career, why you're interested in this career, and also why you believe in yourself and making it in this highly competitive and highly challenging industry, as we know. What gives you the drive and will to move forward? And I'll say beyond passion and beyond interest is a lot of times it's specificity, right? Clarity on your specific path, especially for creatives, but also for the business side, people who can articulate what really interests them about that particular job, about that particular role, always have a stronger footing in the application pool. I will say another common pet peeve from mine, people know, is when people start your statement of interest with, I wanted to be a director since, or I wanted to be a producer since. And I will say in distinctions, I'm always curious about people who've known they wanted to be a producer since they were children. That's fascinating. And I do want to see that in your statement letter. With writers and directors, I'd love to hear stories about your childhood, but you know, I think tell that in the most creative way possible. If anything, I'm sure you know people in your world who also applied for programs. Ask them to give you notes, or ask them if you can read their statement letters and see if you found them compelling. Another thing is length. We give you up to 3 pages, I believe, to write your statement of interest, but you do not need to use the entirety of the 3 pages. You can if you have something really important to say. I do actually think, you know, outside of writing more than a paragraph, you can also be concise. So I think 1.5 pages is usually a sweet spot for a statement of interest, especially if there's a lot of clarity, a lot of elaboration on your experience, the kinds of things you're into, your voice, and again, why you're interested in your specific lane. The other thing that we find really compelling is, you know, what did you do outside of working in film and television? Who are you as a person? What shaped your worldview? Why are you interested in a program specifically with WIF? If you heard me at the top of this hour, we are a community. We're building a network of advocates, not just creatives and executives. So if you have, you know, particular interest in policy or in supporting gender equity, you know, we do want to hear about that and also why. And we're not just going to assume it's because you are of an underrepresented gender. We love stories about how this kind of community would be impactful for your work and how you also want to contribute to it.
We have a couple of questions about what we are looking for in the applications, and also one question I think about the jury process. And I think going over the jury process might answer some of the questions about what we're looking for. So typically we have, for all of our programs, 3 stages of jury process. So we have a preliminary round, which is typically external jurors who've juried for us many, many times. Oftentimes they are mentors, past mentors, current mentors, definitely people from our executive community. A lot of readers for our writing programs are at agencies or do script coverage at different companies. So the preliminary jury is sort of focusing on the overall application. Often where the scripts are read for the for the first time for the episodic lab. After that session, or after that jury round, we typically take a really small amount. So in the past, we've gotten maybe 350 applications, sometimes more for the episodic lab alone. Typically into the semifinal session stage, which is the second stage of judging, we typically bring in maybe 20 to 25. It's a really, really small group. And that's where the staff is coming in to really, read the entirities of the script, read the statement letters really, really in depth. We're making decisions based on who is in the cohort, who is in the application pool, not in the cohort, but in the application pool, who could potentially make a really great cohort together. We're just reading everything even more in depth. And then we move on to a third round, which is our finals round. That's a little bit different with the blacklist. There's still the blacklist program. There's still the same number of rounds, but we just sort of titled them differently. So again, definitely come to the AMA for that, for more clarity on this. But with the fellowship specifically, the finals round is when we are bringing in sort of an expert panel. It's staff again. We're bringing in hopefully the mentors from the program, people who will be mentoring or have mentored for us in the past, who can really dig into the specific nuances of each of those cohorts. And that's usually when we'll also do interviews. We'll do an interview round in there. So those who are moving forward get multiple touch points, but you should think about your application as those sort of touch points. You want your application to shine in a really, really large pack. So making sure that statement letter notes that Maikiko gave that are really great and are also maybe towards the top of your statement letter. Make sure your links are edited, like I mentioned before, and we're only looking at, because this is the round, that preliminary round, where we can only guarantee that we'll watch the first 15 or we'll read the first 15 or whatever we've asked for. So if there is anything in that round that you haven't put forth your best foot, there's less of a chance that you'll move on to the semifinals round where we're really digging in. You also want to make sure that in that statement letter, there is enough information that if you make it to the semifinals round, we really have the information that we need of what you're looking for. What are your expectations of this program? Where are you in your career? We want to know that you also have a focus of where you want to go, and we will know how to support you. That's an important part of that semifinals round. And then that finals round, which is that interview, prep for it. If you are brought in for an interview, it means that we're extremely interested in you for this program. So just make sure that you have your ducks in a row for that too. And, can bring the things that maybe you weren't able to include in writing in your program into that finals round. We will say, I think last year, total, we got 1,300 applications and we were only able to accept 87 across the board. This is a very, very competitive program. So just, we are so excited to read all of them, but it's even a bigger encouragement to just really make sure that you are taking the time with that application to put your best foot forward. So what we're looking for, I think, ties back to sort of what we expect in the application. We really are excited to hear from everyone. And we also know that there are nuances. Sometimes, directors or cinematographers come from the ad space and have really great, visuals that they can show us. And there's, already work into doing, narrative fiction. And we can see that in the statement letter, and we can see that in the, next project they have coming up. So all of those things, like, it's really difficult for us to say that there are people that are just simply too emerging for the fellowship, because it's very nuanced. So I would just say, if you do feel that you are earlier stage career in one of the creative disciplines, writing, directing, producing, even maybe cinematography, if you're on working in the executive space, or on a desk and you feel that you're also very junior, those are the people that I would love for you to email us, email the programs inbox, and just do a spot check of where you think you are, and we'll be very honest with you. We also know that these applications you have to pay for or create a membership, so we don't want people just to apply if it really doesn't make sense, but we do want to encourage you to check before you decide this program just isn't for me.
Yeah, and to that point, I saw a couple of questions about whether or not if you're a student, you should apply. I will say, if you're currently matriculated in school, you'll probably be less competitive, just to be transparent about that. It doesn't mean it's impossible, and we've certainly had students in past programs, but it's very rare. And I think to the extent that those students really already had work going or something happening in their career that was about to blow up, then apply. But if you still are like not quite sure of your footing, or you're 2 or 3 years out from graduation, I would really recommend taking a look at our Emerging Careers program, which is newly launched as well. There will be a much more robust calendar for next year in 2024. We'll be offering workshops, opportunities to network, opportunities to get to know each other, and general education, right? So Hollywood 101, how do I break in? How do I start to meet people? So there will be workshops and programming for folks at your level as well. The fellowship, again, to Melissa's point, it's hard to say in a range of experience, except for extremely green, as I just described. But again, to this point, if you're someone who has worked at a desk for a long time, you are, say, a development exec or an exec of some other kind, or even in business and legal affairs, but you're really excited about transitioning to screenwriting or directing, and you've worked with those creatives for a long time, so you know how their journeys work, you know how the industry operates in that field, you should apply. And that we kind of love seeing people who are transitioning into other fields, and vice versa. I love to see creatives going to the business side, because we need you. We need the artists working on green lighting and making budgetary decisions. So if that's you, if you're transitioning to a different type of job within the industry, we definitely encourage you to apply, and for the right fellowship for that.
I also see we have some questions about the mentoring aspect, who the mentors are, how it's different than the mentoring program of the past. We will say for some of the cohorts, particularly the writers, directors, producers, the cohorts that we've had mentoring circles for in the past many times, chances are the mentoring aspect of those fellowships will look exactly the same as it was in the mentoring program if you've participated in that. With the caveat that it is now 1/4 of the experience in the program as opposed to the entire program. The also exciting thing is that because there are much less fellows and we are doing the one-on-one strategy, the WIF team has our arms much more wrapped around this group. So I think I mentioned at the beginning, it's not so much WIF passing you along to a mentor, and then the mentor is the relationship you build. The mentor is one of many relationships that you would build in this program now. Still really exciting. The mentoring aspect is probably one of the most, I mean, all 4 of the buckets I think are exciting in their own way, but this aspect of it, we do feel that we've perfected over many, many years, and are excited about the mentors that are volunteering, especially as we pass our 50th anniversary mark. Who they are, there are past participants, so it wouldn't be past fellows because the fellowship is new, but past program participants who have graduated to being mentors. We love to see it. That is our hope. I mean, our hope is that many of our fellows down the line become board members. If this organization even needs to exist, hopefully we can work ourselves out of a job, but to the extent that we are still around and still need to do this work, we are hoping that this does become a journey that is long for many of you and you stay involved. But for the most part, the mentors are pretty high level. We try and also give support because we hear from this a lot from a lot of people, that it's also helpful to have mentors that are just a couple of steps ahead. So we also try and bring that aspect into the fellowship. But as far as the core mentors go for each of the cohorts, many of them are board members. I think we have 3 or 4 different WIF board members who are mentoring this year. They are high level of their career trajectory. And typically, And again, this does work differently for some cohorts because it just, the duo isn't necessary. But for the most part, we like to give each cohort 2 mentors who work together to mentor the entire group, who come from the craft side and the business side. So the simplest thing is if you're a writer or a director and you get placed in the fellowship, your core mentors might be a writer or a director themselves. And then the other mentor might be somebody who is an agent or a manager who reps writers or directors, or an executive who hires writers and directors or develops with writers and directors. So that's sort of how we set up the mentoring aspect of it. Also to say that the exciting part about the one-on-one strategy is if we find that there are additional mentoring needs or additional people that we are getting a lot of people that are just really excited to be a part of these programs from the executive side. And we also try and pair as many one-on-ones that we can possibly do. It's just not a guaranteed part of the program, but we've been successful in 2023. So
yeah, something that's been really wonderful about this year, I think, in the spirit of solidarity and trying to make our community better for workers and for people thriving in this industry, is a lot of people leaning in and saying they want to support the fellows. And we expect that fully to continue in 2024. And we're really excited to continue to grow our pool and network of mentors and advisors who've been so wonderful. And we're really excited for you to meet them should you join the fellowship program. I did see a couple questions around location and want to get pretty clear about that, though, you know, hopefully not crush too many dreams about it. When the pandemic, we are still in it, fully aware, when some of the restrictions lifted, we realized the value of being in person. And so for that reason, we ask that people be Los Angeles local for the program, because many of our events will be in person, though the mentoring sessions may be virtual. So it's just that there's a combination and also kind of an uncertain scheduling aspect of like when events are happening. We may say, oh, there's an event next week, we hope you can go, or there's an event in 3 weeks, we hope you can go. And obviously if you are local, you have a bit more flexibility to make it to those. We will say we have accepted people who do not live in Los Angeles in 2023. So we do make exceptions, but again, to the point of how early should I apply if I'm really junior or green in my career, similar to folks who live outside of Los Angeles, we don't want to upsell this to you, because it does make it a little bit trickier to accept you into the program if you are not an LA local. If you are able to travel and have that capacity and think you can make all of the events or as many of the events that are required of you to be participatory, that does help. You should put that in your application. And of course, we regret that being LA specific as a chapter, most of our network and community are LA based. You should also check out our sister chapter, WIF, in New York. They have also incredible programming. So if you're New York based, you know, we encourage you to become a WIF member. We are separate fiscal entities, but we work closely together on various events throughout the year. So, you know, there are opportunities for overlap. But again, because we're trying to do as much programming in person as possible while also COVID safe, we do stress the Los Angeles residency.
I'm going to try and grab a couple of quick answers. Someone had a question about the timing of the episodic labs on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Those are in the evening, in person, correct, Mikiko? In person. So in person, Tuesdays, Thursdays, in the evening. I think somebody else had a question about lots of questions about the additional materials. I think we actually did clarify this a little bit better in the current application. It hasn't made it to the PDF yet, but it is really anything that you think we would want to see. So yes, if you're a designer and you have lookbooks or you have sketchbooks that you'd like to upload PDFs of, super helpful. If you are a producer, writer, well, if you're a director and you have, you know, a lookbook, anything like that, that's great. If you're a producer and you have a pitch deck that you'd like to just show us how you talk about your projects, that's great. It's really anything else that is supplemental to a project or the links that you've sent or the way you work that would allow us to see your creativity that isn't sort of included in everything else. It's not a required aspect for anybody or any of the fellows to apply with. It's just an option. For everyone else, again, the required aspects are required because that is typically the cohort that we form. So I think there were some specific questions about the script uploading.
I did see one, Melissa, maybe you'll find a different one, but around if you're a director, do we need a script from you? No, it's not a requirement if you're a director. producers we do request, and then for the writers, of course, we request. But the only people that, you know, need to have scripts are those who are submitting materials for us to read. Directors, you're welcome to submit a script if you think that would be illustrative of your directing skill. But directors, we do not require script uploads from you.
I think the only other than writers that we require from is producers, because it's important for us to see. A big part of producing is also finding material and finding projects that you want to work on. So reading the current project or one of the current projects in your slate that you are actively trying to get financed and made is a really important aspect of the jury process for specifically the fiction creative and indie producers. And I think the other question was just a general, like, how many links are we looking for? I mean, one amazing link is really all we need to see. If you have 5 different ones that you think are great that you want to include, again, we really, the preliminary jurors will probably only spend about 15 minutes, maybe 25 minutes if there's multiple things on, you know, sort of that previous work information. So if you're going to give us 5 different links, chances are the jurors may only read or look at the first 2 or 3. So prioritize the one that you most. So whatever the best one is, put that first. The next one you would want us to look at, put that second. We may not get to the 3rd, 4th, or 5th. Unfortunately, we might look at it in the, you know, finals round when we're really trying to make the decision, because it is like, that is a really difficult moment for the jury process. Typically, if you make it even to the semifinals round, we really want you in the program. We just don't have spots for everybody. So sometimes that, like, more information is helpful for us to make those final decisions. But again, we are really looking to you to sort of build this application and this submission in the way you want us to look at it. So just prioritize for us, but only one good one is required.
Some great questions about different kinds of industries or sectors that can definitely intersect with ours. And if you're a commercial director, if you work in video games, apply, do it. I will say, I'm not sure that we'll have the exact advisors yet that work in your field. And if that's your focus, if you're looking to become a video game writer or director, your cohort probably won't look like people just like you. But if you are interested in the overlap between film and television and also gaming, fantastic. We'd love to see your application, and we'll figure out how to make it work. That said, you should know the fellowship itself will focus largely on film and TV careers. So your advisors will come from the film and TV world and will probably have the most information to impart about that. And if so, you are focused on becoming a commercial director, this fellowship, you know, might not exactly have what you need, but if you're a commercial director who would like to move into film and television, this is great for you. So again, we love to see people from all different sectors coming in who are interested in working in this space. And again, even if you have interest in working in other sectors, but would like to know about film and television, you have a shot. So don't let that dissuade you from applying.
We had another question about notifications for interviews and when people would know. We will most likely let everyone know who made it into either made it onto any short list or any semifinals list at notifications, the final notification. So if you made it to semifinals or the short list for the episodic lab, but you were not placed in the program, you might not hear that until you get the notification that you were not placed, but we'll let you know the exciting news. And please do take that to heart. If you make it into the semifinals round or the shortlist, it means you are doing a great job. Please don't let it discourage you. And really, so many people that we love don't even make it to the semifinals round. Still don't let it discourage you. But we may not let, we will probably only notify those who get interviews before the final notifications. And we try and give people time. I think based on how the schedule lays out, we can't let people know about episodic lab interviews until like the week before the interviews. So we'll just make sure that everyone who applies knows to hold the dates just in case. And for the fellowships, I think we will let people know at least a week out if you got interviewed. But what we typically do is we give a number of different interview slots and let people sign up for them. So the hope is that we're flexible enough. And if you get called in for an interview, absolutely can't make any of the times, we will, of course, just work with you to find a time. So I wouldn't worry too much about the notifications. Just assume that you will find out about the program by the date that we put on the website of notifications. Any internal conversation up until then is a little fluid based on how juries are going.
see a few other questions around the Emerging Career Program. That is not an application-based program. So just stay tuned. If you haven't signed up for our newsletter, which is free, please do that. And you'll hear about any emerging career opportunities via the newsletter, which again include career workshops, as well as events, parties, opportunities for networking and community building. The other program that we run, which actually encourage folks to, again, not apply for, but to email programs about, is our Black Member Forum, which right now is a protected space for our Black members. And if you are interested in building community within Black creatives and executives, we have a protected space, which right now has both Slack community and some occasional in-person and virtual events. You can email programs@wif.org about membership into the Black Member Forum.
We also had a good question about film versus TV. Right now, we don't, other than the episodic lab being specifically for episodic writers, and the future feature screenwriter support being specifically for screenwriters. Right now, we are just looking at disciplines, like greater disciplines. So if you're a writer, if you're a director, whether you're focused on film or TV, doesn't really affect your application consideration. What it may do, we would like to know all of those specifics. There is a chance that towards the end, if we find that we're really trying to decide between two people and everybody else in the cohort is focused on film, we might end up going with somebody who's more focused on film, or we might go the opposite. We might want to put more episodic people in that. So there is, the screenwriters and episodic fellows can sort of work together to, information share. But for the most part, we really don't have it built that it's film versus television. Like Mikiko said, if you are also in other arenas, we have a lot of people coming from the ad space, or have started in the ad space, but have always intended to be in the fiction space. We would just say, definitely apply, definitely put your specifics. It will help us. And obviously, as we get more support, as we grow our staff, the hope is that we have, more and more specific cohorts. But right now, we can only really focus on writers, directors at large in the cohorts. But obviously, we will bring in as many guest speakers and skill setting that is specifically nuanced on film, television, based on who is actually in the fellowship. That's part of the, sort of cultivation of programming around the fellows.
Oh, I've seen a couple questions around nonfiction professionals. Almost all the fellowships are open to folks who work in nonfiction, with the exception of writing. I think we've found spots for folks who work in documentary and nonfiction in the vast majority of all of our other fellowships. So if you are a documentarian or someone who works in nonfiction on the business side, we have fellows already who fit those criteria. So please apply. Though unfortunately, if you are applying for the episodic lab, that is fiction only. The Writers Fellowship, if you are someone who fancies yourself a writer in the nonfiction space, surprise us. I think you should apply for the Writers Fellowship if you think you qualify, and we'll figure out how to make it work if you are accepted. So again, we are really open to being creative here. I come from a documentary background. I love supporting people who work in nonfiction and documentary, and also the unscripted space we know is a continually growing space, needs a lot of advocacy and people telling us how to support people who work in the unscripted space. So if that's been your career trajectory and you need more support there, you might as well apply for one of these fellowships and let us know how we can support you in that space.
I had another question about the producer fellowship application, which is, do you need a formal budget? That could be a top line budget, just like a one sheet. Really, we just need to have an idea of what the budget plan would be for that project. We are, just to be completely candid, also trying to gauge where the skill level is for the producer. If you're able to put together a top line budget. Here's what I will say also, though, just for any of those areas. If there is a chance that you are somebody who has not put together a formal budget yet before, or are not really sure how to do that, I would also use your community, just like, the recommendation of having, people read your statement letter. Also have somebody help you put together a budget. It can be very, very simple. But if you are just not at that stage, if you're like, listen, I know as a producer, I know how to do all of this, but budgeting is something I'm really, really weak on, or I really would like to learn, I would say upload a document in that space that explains exactly that. We will use it. All of this, we really want to work with our applicants, and we will say again, it's really difficult to sort of, with language, wrap the information around how many different people we are open to supporting and excited to support. So if there is any area where you're like, I check the box on all of this and I just don't know this thing or I don't have this, then explain it in your application. Use that section of the application to explain where you are and have it be sort of a supplement to your statement letter. But I also think the better move is to get with somebody in the next couple months and see if they can help you put a budget together. And if you're accepted based on that, being clear that that is a skill setting area that you need support in is something to bring up that we would, that's a great skill setting thing to bring into the fellowship.
I saw what's not a dumb question around supplemental materials for business or exec applicants. I believe that is the one where we don't require supplemental materials. That said, I just had this flash. If you're someone who's worked behind the desk for a while, one of our big parts of our life in creating relationships across the industry are things like decks or proposals. If that's something that you do, if you work with clients or you're putting together a business proposal and you think that would be interesting for us to see, by all means, submit that. I would love to know, how your business brain works and a project that you're proud of, or you have like a client list or a project list, or even if you're thinking about, as I build my career as an agent or a manager, these are the kinds of clients I'd like to represent and why, which, you could put in your statement of interest, or if you already have a document like that, send it along. It can't hurt. I think the more we can understand about how you work and what you plan on doing with your career, the better.
Yeah. And the best way to use that in the statement letter is just to hyperlink it. So if you have an entire PDF and there's not an area that you can upload it in the application that you're selecting, you can hyperlink an entire document into that PDF and we'll still be able to see it.
Shadowing, unfortunately, isn't an aspect of the directing fellowship that we can guarantee, but we promise we are working every day to find those opportunities. We know shadowing is immensely important. I'll just say across programs like ours and many other fellowships, sometimes they can guarantee shadowing, especially if they're coming out of a network or a studio and have access to shows in regular production. For ours, because we are studio agnostic and work with all different kinds of people, it's a little bit harder for us to get folks in there, especially given COVID restrictions. But whenever we find shadowing opportunities, we make sure to send that, to our fellowships attention. And also we get other kinds of opportunities too. People are looking to hire, people want our list. So that's just a kind of another aspect or benefit of the fellowship that's really great. People, once you're in the fellowship, you become, part of WIF's talent list. And we're constantly sending our fellows out as referrals to folks who are looking for new talent across the board.
Another question about supplemental material, which is, would we recommend a trailer or a full 15 of the film? I will say, especially for if you are not yourself an editor, I understand that it's probably difficult sometimes to pull a full 15. I personally think that giving the film is better than the trailer, because a trailer is meant for something specific. It's meant to sell the film. But what we're looking for is how you were able to execute the actual production aspect and the film itself. So I think a full 15 is better. We will say this: if you are not able in the next couple months to get a clean 15 of something, and it would be better to just submit the whole thing, just do us a favor of giving us a link. Make sure you give us the password, and also give us the timestamp. Please watch this timestamp. That is, I think, a last resort, because again, we do have our jurors are trying to, review so much in such a short amount of time. But that is a workaround. But I would say the longer clip is probably better than the trailer. And then we have questions about the application fee. So application fees are $40 if you are not a member. If you are a member based on your membership, you can get a discount to that. I think it's a 20% discount, or some of our memberships actually come with comps to the applications. Like with the membership, you get, I think, 2 comps in a year, 1 comp in a year. So I would head over to, and Emily, maybe you could drop this link in the chat, if we can chat, maybe. Well, if you go to our website, wif.org, and you go to join us, which is the link all the way to the right, you can see our membership. So it will tell you exactly whether you get the discount or whether you get a comp. So, but $40 is for everyone else.
Yeah, I think to Eleanor and Amelie, anyone who has links, you can also drop them in the Q&A box. It's just now basically functioning like the chat. A couple of questions on the episodic lab, but a reminder for anyone who missed the top, there is going to be an episodic lab AMA on October 20th. So be sure to, I don't believe our link is live yet, but stay posted on the website and also our newsletter. We will let you know when you can RSVP for that AMA. But for some of the basic questions here, you can certainly attach, again, to Melissa's point, if you have a show Bible or more about your show that's outside of the pilot, put that in a link in your statement letter. Totally fine for us to take a look at that. We are mostly focused on the scripts themselves for both the lab and the writing fellowship, but if you have supplemental materials and there isn't a place for that in the application, again, feel free to get creative with your statement letter. And then again, you can apply with multiple scripts to the episodic lab, but for each script that is a TV pilot, you will incur the additional application fee.
And I see two questions. I think we're getting towards the end of the AMA, but two questions about the business fellowship. So elaborating on the business fellowship, the fellowships function the same. So the 4 buckets that we mentioned at the beginning of the AMA, and if anybody missed the beginning of this, we will post it on the website. Please go look at the AMA if you missed. But it's still the same 4 buckets. It's mentoring or a mentorship, it's demystification, skill building, it's career strategy, and it is community building and networking. So that works the same no matter who you are. But we also went over this, I think, at the beginning. The executive track would be specifically people who are currently working or transitioning into working on the studio side, the network side, the production company side. So if you are currently inhabiting the position, are on the path to that position, or interested in starting the path to that position, but have started your career elsewhere, to be in the development executive world, production executive world, at studios, networks, production companies, the business fellowship is for you. If you are a manager or an agent, you're a representative, the business fellowship would be for you. Also, if you are not listed there, but you work on the business side, you're in accounting, you're in maybe marketing, you work at a studio, but you're not a development or production executive, the business fellowship is for you. Just be really specific with your title so that we can make sure that if we're considering you, we can consider the cohort that would be around you and the type of mentors.
And I saw a question around if you're a programmer, if that would be the right field for you. I would say yes. We haven't thought about programmers specifically, but we'd love to have you. So apply under business or executive. And we are at time. I want to stress, if we didn't get to your question, please write to us again, programs@wif.org. A lot of information is on the website. For many of the questions that we didn't get to was because we know that's answered on the website, but if you really can't find your answer there, programs@wif.org is where you want to write. Amelie will respond as quickly as possible. Again, we implore you, do not inundate the inbox the day of the deadline. So read through the application materials now if you have questions before you write. That's why we provide the PDF in advance, so you can take a look at what will be required of you. And if something doesn't make sense, we know there's a lot asked, feel free to write to us. And then know, again, past 6 p.m. on the deadline, we won't be able to answer your questions. You will be able to apply for another 5 hours and 59 minutes, but we won't be able to help with technical support. And we really do stick to our deadline. Extensions are very infrequently given unless there was, some major catastrophe that happened. But we are so excited to read all of your materials and applications. Again, if you have any additional questions, reach out to us, come to the AMA on October 20th. And also, we have a pretty vibrant community. If you're already a member, I think on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and if you were previously in the mentoring cohorts, any of those Slacks, ask your community members if they're fellows or if they've participated in any of our programs, how it's going for them. Really, community is your best resource. And really what we're trying to build here is peer support. So talk to folks and let them tell you how it's going and what they did in order to be accepted. So thank you all so much for being here. We're really excited, again, to meet you, if not in the fellowship space, hopefully in an emerging space or an upcoming WIF event. Sign up for the newsletter to hear when those are. Oh, I want to plug, we also have our weekly office hours at the Ruby Fruit every Wednesday from 11 to 3. So that's a great place to get to know us as well. We always have our team members as well as our current fellows are attending those. The Ruby Fruit over in Silver Lake, and we have that on our Instagram and promoted other places as well. And it's just a great opportunity for community building, which is, I know, something that we're desperately in need of right now. So we hope to see you there on another upcoming Wednesday.